Christmas is here again, and this time many of us are not exactly sure what it will look like, though we all have ideas of how it might be different, because 2020 has certainly taught us to expect the unexpected. Today is what is called the first Sunday of Advent. Advent simply means the arrival of a notable person, thing, or event. It is a time of year that many of us look forward to with excitement and anticipation. And yet there are also those of us who look toward this time with some skepticism, disappointment, and even a little bit of dread. Why, you might ask? Well, as we all know, this season can be a time of year when you feel overwhelmed, stressed, and even depressed. So what makes the difference between enjoying the holidays and simply having a nervous breakdown? Well, first of all, let's be honest with ourselves. We all have certain definitions and expectations of what Christmas is, what it should be, versus what we want it to be, versus what it actually becomes. Of course, the most basic reason and definition of Christ Mass or Christmas is that we celebrate the birth of Christ, a fact that is far too often overlooked in our culture, and believe it or not, even within the church itself. And we will talk more about that as our series progresses. For me, I usually go into the Christmas season with some pretty specific expectations, such as trying not to listen to Christmas music until the day after Thanksgiving, so that I can fully embrace the holiday that encourages gratitude and thankfulness. I expect that the hustle and bustle of the holidays is that place where you almost find an expectation of the rise in anxiety as the season progresses. And I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone. Are there any of these expectations that characterize your life? Making up a gift list, shopping for those gifts, making, wrapping, mailing those gifts. How about making cards or writing cards? Perhaps it's holiday baking, getting and decorating a tree, decorating the house, putting up Christmas lights. Maybe for you it's helping with school activities, helping with church activities, volunteering, maybe some charity work, or those traditional holiday events such as concerts, plays, or festivals. Maybe it's the special holiday cleaning, preparing for house guests, preparing for company meals, hosting parties, planning family gatherings, preparing for holiday travel. Now wait a minute, you say. Yes, some of these expectations will most certainly change or even go away, because we really have no idea how long this COVID thing will last and how it will continue to impact the holiday season. We have come to expect the unexpected, which creates a little bit of unrest and anxiety in all of us. Greetings to all of you. Thank you for watching this video and possibly subscribing to my channel. My name is Al Myers, and I appreciate you, and I am thankful for you today. Things are changing fast. Cultural and political shifts have caused all of us to feel a variety of emotions. Whether we are feeling encouraged or depressed, angry, or confused, there is plenty of news to cause us all to feel a bit anxious. It's tempting to just hide, but what if times of cultural confusion are actually the perfect times for God's people to shine the brightest, as we demonstrate grace and acceptance, love, and hope? It's a great time to be alive as a follower of Jesus. So now, how about you? As you reflect on the events of the last 8 months and ponder the weeks ahead, how has this year taken you on an unexpected path? Does your life look different than you thought it would right now? Are you struggling to find your way? Do you find yourself living in painful circumstances that look nothing like the good life that you dreamed you would be living right now? I believe we are all walking an unfamiliar road, totally unsure of where it's going. Luckily, we are not the first to live a life full of unexpected turn of events. And over the course of the next several weeks, we will drill down and review solid biblical characters and their life stories, revealing many unexpected situations and events that impacted their faith and how we can glean and learn some principles and approaches to better navigate our current reality by understanding some of the basic tenets of that faith. And in this video, I'd like to review the story from the life of the Old Testament Joseph. And if you are at all familiar about Joe's life, we can all agree that he would indeed have times of happiness and joy, but also times of deep-seated fear, trauma, distress, confusion, and also unimaginable heartbreak. After giving him a dream, an incredible vision for his life, and a strong hope for the future, what God didn't tell him was how it was going to play out. All that was in store for him. He only revealed what he needed to know right then. And I think Napoleon Hill, a self-help book author, summarizes it well when he said, "It is strange but true that the most important turning points of life often come at the most unexpected times and in the most unexpected ways." Join me in a fairly quick 30-year time travel throughout Joseph's life, holding on to your faith in a world of chaos, uncertainty, and unfairness. When you're just coasting along and suddenly your whole world gets flipped upside down. In Genesis 37, particularly verses 3 through 4, we find a 17-year-old youngest sibling of 12 finding favor with dad and making sure that his brothers knew it. His dad's name was Jacob. Perhaps you remember the story of Jacob and Esau and the wreckage that was left in the family because of favoritism. If anyone knew the ramifications and unintended consequences of favoring one child over another, it should have been Jacob. Needless to say, the text reads like this. Now Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made an ornate robe for him. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a single kind word to him. You see, when the human heart becomes annoyed with the favor and blessing on someone else, there is a spiritual soil that gets churned up for seeds of bitterness and resentment to take root. As they take root, the heart gets locked in on that blame and shame and game where nothing good can be said of or to the person. And the desire to remove that unhappiness becomes solely focused on an external solution to get rid of the tension and the discontent. So this continuation of sin landed Joseph on an unexpected trip found in Genesis chapter 37, 1 through 36. And now, as you will see in some of these unexpected scenarios, it is true that God is still at work. You see, God has a tendency to use messed up families for his glory and honor. I mean, think about it. He could take any messed up family, past, present, or future, and leverage their interacting stories in a powerful way. So just because your family or extended family is messed up does not mean that God has forsaken you or that some cloud has come over you that will never pass. God works in and through difficult and messed up families. So Joe's bros bought him a couple train tickets to the Pit of Despair Railway through the foreign slavery train station, perhaps the first recorded forms of human trafficking. This young man, full of his big godly dream, had his life interrupted in a really ugly way when his brother's hatred resulted in him being sold as a slave and taken to a foreign country. How is it possible to believe that God can still guide one's life in spite of difficult family issues? And how does one hold on to the dream planted deep inside them when adversity and uncertainty are the culture of the day? So seizing their chance, the brothers threw the unexpected Joseph into a pit. A short while later, they spotted an Arab caravan passing the scene, and the brothers sold Joseph to the traders. He was eventually brought to Egypt, where he was sold to a man named Potiphar, one of the King Pharaoh's ministers or overseers. As Joe served faithfully with character and integrity, knowing that he probably would never see his family again, Joseph acted honorably toward his master, refusing to betray Potiphar's trust in him. It tells us that after some time, the leader's wife took a liking to the young man. The text reads in Genesis 39, 6 through 7. So Potiphar left everything that he had in Joseph's care. And with Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food that he ate. And that is a lot of trust in those days. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." Attracted by his handsome looks, Potiphar's wife desired to be intimate with him. And to her consternation, Joseph continuously refused. And one day, when no one was home other than the two of them, the mistress grasped Joseph's garment, demanding that he consent. Thinking quickly, Joseph slid out of his cloak and ran outside. But as you might already know, Potiphar's wife turned the tables on Joseph, telling her husband that it was Joseph who had tried to entice her. The result? Unexpected imprisonment. And yet even there, Joseph distinguished himself as a man of character, earning the trust of the jailer. In this narrative of injustice, deceit, and betrayal, what inner choices do you think Joseph had to make to maintain his integrity in the face of injustice? What kind of dedication, devotedness, and trust in God does it take to refuse unexpected temptations that would compromise one's character? Now, one might think that this isolation and quarantine would have taken the spunk out of Joseph, where he might find himself asking, why all this unfairness when he's just doing what is right, and why is it so constant? But often when the believer holds on to the promises and dreams of God, along comes an unexpected opportunity. Since Joe's charisma followed him to prison as well, the warden soon appointed him as his right-hand man. In time, his unique qualities expressed themselves in an additional area. And when the king's royal cupbearer and baker were imprisoned, Joseph successfully interpreted their dreams. He correctly predicting that the cupbearer would be released and the baker would be hanged. The story reads like this in Genesis chapter 40, verses 6 through 8. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials, who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." And then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." And so we get a glimpse into Joseph's response that is a bit uncanny and unusual for our time. He allowed God to use him to encourage these fellow prisoners. And I find it most interesting that when presented with unexpected opportunities, how often people look to others only in terms of how they can help them be successful. Instead, Joseph seemed to find ways to bless and serve those around him in any way that he could. Now, in our quick microwave society and movie-saturated culture, we are simply not comfortable with too much tension or having to put up with tension for too long. We don't mind the unknowing or the tension if we can ultimately find that place of resolve in our minds or even our hearts. And so we would hope that this movie of Joseph would play out in the same way. But instead, Scripture tells us that it was actually 2 years later until King Pharaoh himself envisioned 2 dreams, which none of his advisors were able to explain. And so he was reminded of that slave in prison that could interpret dreams. So how does one hold on for so long in the midst of a fickle, unpredictable, and unreliable world where many of his freedoms were taken away unjustly? And in the animated DreamWorks version of the story of Joseph, the writers compose a song that is played during Joe's jail time. And I find the lyrics refreshing and encouraging even today. And they are also incredibly timely and relevant for today, as it puts a little bit of reality into Joseph's humanness during tough times. He sings, "I thought I did what was right, and I thought I had the answers. I thought I chose the surest road, but that road brought me here. So I put up a fight, and I told you how to help me. Now just when I have given up, the truth is coming clear. You know better than I. You know the way. I've let go the need to know why, for you know better than I. If this had been a test, I cannot see the reason, but maybe knowing I don't know is part of getting through. I tried to do what's best, but faith has made it easy to see the best thing I can do is to put my trust in you. I saw one cloud and thought it was a sky. I saw a bird and thought that I could follow, but it was you who taught that bird to fly. And if I let you reach me, will you teach me? For you know better than I. You know the way. I've let go of the need to know why. I'll take what answers you supply because you know better than I. I wonder if this posture of the heart was at the core of Joseph's resolve, when in Genesis 41, 14-16, describes for us his unexpected promotion. Here's what it says. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and when he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. I cannot do it, Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer that he desires. Joseph, now about 30 years old, interpreted Pharaoh's dreams as being a divine prediction for 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. And he advised Pharaoh to prepare by storing grain during the first 7 years. Impressed by Joseph's wisdom, Pharaoh appointed him as his viceroy, second only to the king himself, and tasked him with readying the nation for the years of famine. This unexpected promotion allows us to peer in on Joseph and the knowledge that clearly stated that only God could and would give Pharaoh the interpretation. Now, this wasn't a first-time thing, but rather the day-by-day choices that had formed within Joseph's character. It simply begs the question, what choices will you make today in the midst of your unpredictable, unreliable world that will build the character to stand the test when the time comes? Now, this would make for a happy ending, but as you already suspect, God has a way of asking us to do the more difficult things as we get older and are more in positions of power over others. Things in Egypt were going quite well. Meanwhile, the effects of the famine, they were felt in the nearby countries. Hearing that there was grain in Egypt, Joseph's brothers journeyed there to buy some precious food from this viceroy, not realizing that he was their very own brother. This presented Joseph with one more part of his unprecedented story, an unexpected family reunion. The text that pops up is found in Genesis 42, 7 and 8. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. Where do you come from? He asked. From the land of Canaan, they replied, to buy food. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Joseph decided to utilize this opportunity to observe whether his brothers truly regretted having sold him. Using a succession of dramatic maneuvers, Joseph tested his brothers' determination to save their youngest brother, Benjamin, Joseph's only maternal brother, from the plot that he set up for him. Once he saw their devotion toward Benjamin, Joseph finally revealed his identity to his astonished siblings. Now that's the unexpected story of the life of Joseph. What's your story? And how will it be written from here on out? Imagine yourself in Joseph's place when his brothers appeared before him to purchase food during the famine. How do you respond when you have the power to take revenge on someone who has hurt you? Joseph had the ability to see that God was at work, even in the most difficult of circumstances. Can you find strength to forgive those who have wounded you deeply? Can you trust that God's purposes will not be thwarted by others more powerful than you? I think we can all take note of Joseph's dedication to his God and the dream placed within him many years before. That after all the uncertain, unpredictable events that took place in his unexpected life, Joseph was able to declare in Genesis 50:20, one of the most famous of all verses, "What you meant for evil against me, God meant it for good." I like Max Lucado, a modern-day author of story and encouragement. He says it this way: in God's hands, intended evil becomes eventual good. And that is something that we can take our stand on during this Christmas holiday season. The circumstances that you are dealing with right now can be tools of transformation in God's hands. He can use your difficulties to shape you into the person that He created you to be, so that you are equipped to do the things that He has designed you to do. You have to trust Him enough to believe He is at work in your life, even if you can't see it, and that He will use your struggles for your ultimate benefit. Through all of life's unexpected twists and turns, Joseph kept God as a fixed point, the one source of certainty in an uncertain world. Let's ask God to help us expect with trust that God's purposes will be fulfilled in our lives. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed day.